Hey, welcome to JayhawkJukebox. I'm your host, Tristan Allen, and today I have the band Quite Frankly with us. They're going to perform at Lawrence later tonight. So, just real quick, do you guys just want to go around and just introduce yourselves real quick to get yourselves acquainted with the Jukebox audience?
Of course. I'm Carolyn.
I'm Jolson. I'm Gavin.
And I'm Scout.
Right, and I'm under the, and if I'm not mistaken, we're down one member today.
Yeah, Eli, our guitarist, he couldn't make it schedule-wise. But
So, I just kind of just want to just start at the beginning, you know, just kind of like understand your guys' origins, even though I understand you guys have been around since 2016.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the only original person here is Scout over here.
Yeah.
Scout, why don't you just kind of like walk us through like how this band came together, how everyone in the studio is here today.
Most of us actually initially started at the School of Rock at Overland Park, but they switched over management. So they disbanded a lot of like the normal stuff, like house band that we all played in, and so that was like my only outlet for music. So I asked my mom if I could start a garage band, and she did not expect us to like go this long. She was like, "Oh yeah, we'll like play music in the garage for like a couple weeks and then like dwindle down." But now we're here again.
So just kind of like now. Yeah, I think that's an interesting member, and I mean, that's an interesting story. But as I've mentioned before, I mean, you guys have gone through quite a few people. Let's just kind of want to understand like how you guys have all came here. So, Gavin, like, why don't you just kind of tell us how you got involved, and we'll just kind of just like circle it around.
yeah.
Well, actually, I discovered the band because my older brother Jolson was in it, and we went to see it a couple of times. And then one day he shot me a text and it was like, "Hey, our drummer quit." And I was like, "You still play drums, right?" I was like, "Sure do." He's like, "Just want to come up and like jam around and see if we mash it all." It's been about 3 years, and they have not gotten rid of me yet.
I guess we match. You know?
Yeah, that's the answer hasn't been no yet.
Yeah.
Still on the fence.
Yeah, Jolson. So I mean, Gavin just said that that you were in the band before he was. Kind of tell me how you got in the band.
So I was in School of Rock as well, but I joined like super late. I was only in for one season, which is like a semester long, basically. So I barely knew Scout, but I became pretty decent friends with the old guitarist, Nate. And then there was some stuff that went on with some of the other vocalists, and they wanted to leave. And so they hit me up, and they're like, "Hey, we're opening for Tenacious D at the Starlight. Can you come play a show?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And that was, that was like 4 years ago now.
And last but not least, Carolyn, just walk us through.
I came in when our first singer quit, and I was brought in as kind of a substitute, and then they were like, "Hey, actually, can you just stay and
We like having you here." So.
And I was like, "Sure." And then we had another singer with me for a while because we do a lot of songs, and I don't have time to learn all of them with my busy, I'm still in high school.
Right.
And so then we brought Jolson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, it's great because like we cover a lot of music because we've taken like 4-hour gigs. That's kind of how we started as a cover band, and we're releasing more originals as we go. But it's great because then she can take stuff that's like way too high for me to sing, or like originally by female artists and whatnot, and I can take all the lower stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So I actually did kind of want to just kind of like ask about like some of your original work, because I was looking at your Spotify discography earlier today, and I noticed that like some of you had work like as far back as 2018. That's your first original song, Volcano, I believe.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing about only having one original member now, is that nobody really that wrote that song is here anymore. So sonically, it's become very different because, like we were talking about right before we went on, we're all kind of on the same page musically now, which is really nice because we weren't always that way. So. Yeah, some of those older tunes, they're not as representative of what we are now.
So are those like older tunes like retired, or is it like a different like spin on it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much
we
retired.
don't really
Fair enough.
Definitely Blue and Red and Is It Still Even Fun? That's the direction that we are in right now. And
those are the two
couple
newest,
songs that we're working on right now are pretty cohesive with those two songs, I would say.
But okay, just kind of like explain to me how you got to the sound, explain to me why you guys arrived at the sound you're at today. Like, what appeals to that kind of music? Like what just kind of like what are like your inspirations, for the sound that you have?
Yeah. So, like I said, we were mostly a cover band for a long time, and we played for a lot of old people. Like we played at a lot of bars and stuff, so we had a lot of classic rock in our discography. And so I think that like rock and roll thing has always stuck with us, and now we've just kind of found more modern ways to do it. Like Scout and I especially are into like Midwest emo, like Mom Jeans and Just Friends, Remo Drive, Retirement Party, that kind of thing. And then like our guitarist Eli, he's like more Southern rock, and he's a incredible writer. He's so fun to write with. He can just come up with chord progressions like that. And so he starts, like the basic sonic layer of everything, and then we all have our own ways of
Contributing.
Like all of our songs have been made in like one rehearsal, almost
one take,
just like
basically,
1 or 2 hours, and we just pump it out. Yeah,
I've never been with a group of people that writes as efficiently as these guys do. It's like
it's just very natural.
well-oiled machine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know some people take like forever to write music, but
My solo album has been going for 2 years. So, yes, it's very nice to have this outlet. Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys have been kind of like a mainstay in Kansas City. I don't know if you've performed elsewhere outside the KC Metro, but we have.
In Chicago a couple times.
In Nashville.
In Nashville.
We were also in Nashville.
We were supposed to. Oh yeah. She's laughing because she got on a bird wreck. The scooters.
I was riding a bird on this bridge, and I say that the brake didn't work. I just think I didn't know how to use the brake, and I just completely crashed and had to go to the hospital. Yeah, and I have scars on my knees and my elbows. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Don't be.
That's just
But I played at the Country Music Hall of Fame,
which is weird. 'Cause
3
we're not a
hours
country
before
band,
that.
but,
So
yeah.
yeah.
But and then we were supposed to play the Whiskey A Go Go actually like the week that COVID happened. It was literally like March 20th, 2020 or something. We were supposed to be in LA, and
Yeah, that's
didn't quite make that. Wonder what happened.
not great timing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What can you
just,
do?
I guess like that, but like I guess kind of I want to kind of like focus it back on Kansas City because we're at KU, we're sort of in the Kansas City area, bit of a stretch, but sort of the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
But like just, I was reading your band's website. You've performed all over. You've opened for big acts. You mentioned earlier that you opened for Tenacious D at Starlight.
Yeah. Well, opened is a generous term.
We open the side stage.
Yeah.
And then there's the big stage.
Got you. Okay, fair enough. Okay. But like, I guess like kind of like just like talk to me about your guys' like favorite venues that you've performed at, and I understand this might be a different answer, so for each of you guys, so just chime in when you want. But
I don't know if I have a favorite.
We play a lot of places.
Yeah.
I don't know. Me personally, I really like the Record Bar and then their outdoor venue that they made for COVID,
Lemonade Park.
Lemonade Park
Yes.
in the West Bottoms is so fun. But geez, other than that, I mean.
I really like playing here. Like
Yeah, the
not
replay
just
is so
not
fun,
just saying
though.
that because I'm here, but I like coming out here and playing out here.
The Lawrence and KC scenes overlap quite a bit usually. There's a lot of, sharing bills and whatnot and sharing band members. And
True.
But yeah, I'd say the Record Bar, Lemonade Park, and God, there's one more that I'm thinking of that I can't. Anyway, just a lot of bars.
Well, it sounds like
lot of bars.
Kind of like the younger.
it kind of sounds like you guys do like perform quite a bit. So do you have like any like interesting like stories about like you were?
A lot that we can't even like say on
Yeah,
here.
like we one time I was like freshly 18, I think, and we were playing at this pizza place in North KC. And like I said, especially in the beginning, we were mostly a cover band. So like,
I don't remember what this is.
oh, so we were playing a bunch of 80s music, and so there were all these like 40 and 50-year-olds getting hammered and having a great time. And this like older lady walked up to me later, and she was like, "Oh, you guys, you did such a great job." And I was like, just like hanging out, talking. And then like her husband came by, and they were both like giving me a weird look. And then she licked my face, out of it, like full on from like neck to ear. And I was like, what is going on? You know? Yeah.
Oh,
So we've ran into some interesting characters.
Or people, like, at one of the places we play at, people will just fall onto the stage.
Oh, yeah.
there
Oh,
was a
fall onto
lady
the
at
stage and then
Jerry's.
sing in our microphones
Yeah,
also.
that
Oh yeah, we had some kids. We were playing a prom, and they just came up to our microphones and started using them, and
singing.
we were like, "Hey,
Yeah.
don't do that."
The first show that the band ever did down in Westport for First Fridays, this drunk lady obviously sloshed. We were playing Sweet Home Alabama, and she just comes up and just starts. She literally just grabbed a mic, didn't even ask, just starts
Yeah.
going at it, and
The gall.
we just let it happen. We couldn't just like force her off the stage in the middle of a song.
Yeah, it's just because it puts us in a weird position. Like, are we the rude band that's
The bad guys.
Yeah, we
this
just
lady
muted her.
living her, Leonard Skinner
Right.
dream?
I mean, it's unfortunate that happened, but I mean, I kind of have to admire her confidence, being able to
Yeah, just be like, I see what they're doing, and I think I belong up there. I should do that
Yeah.
now. Whatever, respect. Yeah, some lady like almost broke my saxophone one time. She like
I
fell
remember that.
full weight on it, and then like you said, just got up and was like, "Well, I'm already on stage. I might as well
Yeah.
be singing now." It was yeah.
So I guess kind
Lot
of just.
characters.
So I mean, you guys have released singles so far. I mean, I understand you guys are still coming up through your original work, as you kind of just like try to figure out your sound. The people in your band haven't really been. It's been in flux for the past few years, so you haven't really had a chance to like really come up with a consistent sound, like in an
good
album.
point.
But I guess I'm just kind of like wondering like what your guys' like future is like as a band.
Well, we've got two more
songs
songs
that
in the
we're
works,
working on.
like right now that we're gonna finish, but we're hoping to like bare minimum have an EP by the summer,
Yeah.
like 6-ish songs. But yeah, an album is
Maybe
for me personally. I don't know. I feel like everybody's on
Yeah.
the same page,
yeah,
but like
I
I'm
think we
really
all
pushing
would like
an
an
album.
album
Yeah, because.
in the nearest future.
Yeah, because we're
Question
also
mark?
tired of being a cover band. I know I've said
Yeah.
it like a million times already, but yeah, we're
Yeah.
really just trying to make that switch into like, hey, we write music too. You
Yeah.
can
Our
hire
own
us for
stuff.
that.
Well, I
So-
think we're out of time.
Sorry, I'm long
So, just real quick, catch Quite Frankly at the Replay Lounge at 6 p.m. on Mass Street in Lawrence, and make sure to stream them wherever music is available. Anyways, let's cut to their music video.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Wait for a moment. Tell me what I wanna hear. If it's open, then close it. Make sure that we're in the clear. I need to quit waking up in your bed. I'm so tired, I'm shaking. It's routine, the lights still red. Then you'll call me and I'll come. I've gotta ask, is it still even fun? Well, I'm so sorry, it's really not like me. I'm just imitating what I think I should be. And you don't need to love me, it's cool if you like me. But I can't keep pretending that this is what I need now. I'm gone, the curtains are drawn. What's love anymore? But another person's clothes on the floor. Well, last night she said, oh baby, I'm ready for you to do something new, but I don't wanna work, put it off for now. Yeah, it feels a chore. Won't you show me how to live with myself? 'Cause I've never tried clutter on the shelves. Smoke is in my eyes, but I'm not that bad. You should see my friends. Are you feeling sad? Well, don't come back again. Then you call me and I'll come. I've gotta ask, is it still even fun? Well, I'm so sorry, it's really not like me. I'm just imitating what I think I should be. And you don't need to love me, it's cool if you like me. But I can't keep pretending that this is what I need now. I'm gone, the curtains are drawn. What's love anymore? But another person's clothes on the floor. But if you really curtains are drawn. What's love anymore? But another person's clothes on the floor.
Jayhawks, welcome back to JayhawkJukebox. We're doing Song of the Week. My name is John Dawkins.
And I'm Grace.
And what song did you have, Grace, for the week?
I picked Wait by Redville, and he is a 17-year-old artist with 2 albums out, and I just picked this song because it's one of my favorites. The intro to the song is super cool if you go listen to it after, but what song did you choose?
Yeah. I chose, if I can remember, The Bag by Coltrane featuring Lucky Day. When I first heard it, I heard the triangle, and that kind of so it starts everything. Basically in the song he's talking about being all in his bag for this woman, head over heels, and just deep in love, and you see a chihuahua on the cover. It's kind of he even has his first verse of I even gave you a chihuahua in the bag. He's just down, out in the mud. But I like it because it has a cool kind of rhythm to it, a nice kick. It gives me kind of a Silk Sonic vibe.
I was just going to say
Yeah.
that. When I was listening to it before, I definitely heard Silk Sonic.
Yeah.
It's a really chill vibe, too.
Yeah, that's why.
yeah.
Even driving and everything, it was in my subconscious for a week. I was I'm gonna go back to it.
There's something from that song. I don't know if it's instruments. That one of the songs from Silk Sonic's album.
Yeah.
It sounds just like it.
They do
I don't
this
know.
weird turn, the chord progression at the end, and that's what kind of gives it that the synth kind of sound from Silk Sonic and that kind of history sound. But what was the song called again?
Wait.
Yeah. I heard from that album Drown, and that was pretty dope. And then when you brought it up to me, I was I got another one to look at. So what is Wait about?
I don't really know. It's a lot of it's one of those songs where you just listen to and you kind of just it's a feel good song, and it's he also raps kind of fast too, so you're not really listening to the lyrics as much.
I heard it was something like blood, and I was it's kind of deep. He's he's going over, so it's not like a history he was talking about.
Yeah, that whole album Niagara is super good. I recommend everyone to listen to it. But yeah.
All right.
So that is it for this song of the week. We are going to pass it to Zach, Nathan, and Graham for This Week in Rock and Roll.
What's up, everybody? I'm Nathan.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Graham.
And just recently, a few weeks ago, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame put out their list of nominees for their 2022 class. And we're going to dive into that a little bit, kind of talk about who we think maybe should be in off this list, who shouldn't be, and some other candidates that we think should be in that either weren't nominated or haven't been nominated. So I want to get your two's kind of first opinions when you saw the list.
Kind of a mixed bag. You have some artists in there that definitely deserve to be in there, and then you have some different genres that aren't really rock, or I wouldn't classify as rock, but they're nominated. So definitely a mixed bag. But out of the complete list, there's definitely ones in there that I agree with.
No, and I completely agree with you on that, Zach. I mean, I definitely have no problem with rap artists being represented in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, rock and roll is an ideology, and I feel like some of these people represent that. But then I think Eminem, I don't know if Eminem really represents that compared to other rap artists that haven't been. I thought A Tribe Called Quest was a great pick. But yeah, and your thoughts, Nathan?
Well, one of my biggest criticisms with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that they're not inducting rock and roll artists anymore. I do agree and disagree with what you said, that rock and roll is more of a just feel. But at the same time, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was created to induct rock and roll artists. And when you nominate people like Eminem or A Tribe Called Quest, as good as they are, they're not rock and roll. So that's kind of where I have a problem with some of these nominees. And I wouldn't have a problem if they just rename it. If they renamed it like the Modern Music Hall of Fame or something along that line, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But as long as it's still called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they should stick to pretty much rock and roll. I'd even say that with some of the jazz artists that are in there, like Miles Davis. He has some in there because he did a little jazz rock fusion near the end of his career, but at the same time, he's still primarily jazz. And he probably really shouldn't be in there. So I know we kind of talked about a few of the candidates that probably should be in off this list, like Pat Benatar, possibly Duran Duran, Judas Priest, and some who shouldn't be in, like Eminem or possibly A Tribe Called Quest. But I had you both come up with 3 artists that either haven't been nominated or should be nominated. And I'm curious to see what you guys picked.
Yeah, so I was just kind of going through the list that a website had posted, and 3 artists or bands really jumped out to me. The first being Jethro Tull. Prog rock, as we had talked about last week, it's not really represented well in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It's really not.
And it's personally one of my favorite genres. And Jethro Tull, I mean, Ian Anderson made flute solos, cool. And so that's my first pick. Second pick is Soundgarden. They were the first of the Seattle 4 of grunge out of Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana. Rest in peace, Chris Cornell, one of the greats. And for my third, I'm trying to think of who I picked on the third
Do you
one.
have Iron Maiden?
Iron Maiden,
right?
yeah, Iron Maiden. I'm a big metal guy, and so I think you got to give credit where credit's due. One of the big influencers in the metal scene, and one of my favorite riffs of all time in The Trooper.
So for my 3, we talked about the prog rock scene not really getting their representation in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So my first nomination was Kansas, one of the most influential prog rock bands of all time. Multi-million selling albums with Left Overture, Point of No Return. Some of the most recognizable songs ever. Being Carry On My Wayward Son is probably one of the most overplayed songs on the radio.
Yeah, I would agree.
Dust in the Wind.
Absolutely.
And it's convenient that they're also, hometown is Topeka, Kansas. So in my opinion, they should definitely be represented in the Hall of Fame, no question, for their influence on prog rock and rock and roll as a whole. Secondly, I have Steve Winwood. Now, technically, Steve Winwood is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it's with Traffic. So I would put him in as a solo artist. I mean, some of his albums in the 80s, like Taking Back the Night, I'm drawing a blank, but he had multiple top 10 hits. His influence with rock and roll, his friendships and collaborations can't be denied with his influence on rock and roll as a whole. And he's just overall a great artist, great writer, and has no business not being in. And my third one was Phil Collins. And like Steve Winwood, Phil Collins is technically in the Hall of Fame with Genesis, but Phil Collins may be the most influential solo artist of the 80s. I mean, this man did literally everything. I mean, his albums just transcend time. Everybody knows In the Air Tonight, the drum riff, it's probably the most recognizable drum riff
100%.
possibly ever. No Jacket Required is one of the most successful albums of the 80s. It's just incredible what he did and how he has not gotten in. And even later in his career in the 90s, I mean, one of the things I love about Phil Collins is that he did the Tarzan soundtrack for Disney, which in my opinion is one of the greatest soundtracks of all time.
I didn't know that.
And he gets almost no recognition for his solo stuff. So Graham, who did you have?
Well, guys, call me formulaic, but my picks were already picked by the already nominated. I think Beck really should not have had his first nomination be this year. For someone that's really inspired a lot of alternative rock and roll and indie, that just entire sphere within the rock world, it shouldn't have come in 2022. If we're sticking with a 90s theme, Rage Against the Machine is another one. And I think a lot of what they had to say could be relevant now, whether or not you believe in what Tom Morello was preaching at the time or even now. But then to roll it back, Pat Benatar's discography and really the era in which he was in rock and roll 100% represents, like you were saying. This is one of those picks when you're putting Eminem and A Tribe Called Quest up, and you haven't inducted Pat Benatar into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What are you doing?
One of the great female artists.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd argue that, in terms of, that kind of that pop era,
Yeah.
mid-late 70s into the 80s, she may be the most influential out of that group. I mean, I kind of think Blondie within there as much, they're a bit more poppy.
Yeah.
But she may be one of the most influential female musicians of all time. And I know the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has a requirement that I think to be nominated, your first solo album had to be released 20 or 25 years ago.
Okay.
Something like that. But, Pat Benatar released her first album in the 70s, and she doesn't get nominated until 2022.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's an absolute travesty, and it's embarrassing from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for somebody that influential and great, to have to wait almost 50 years to get in. And if she doesn't get in on this cycle, I don't even know what to think of that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's just ridiculous. We'll take one more break, and then we'll be back with This Week in Rock and Roll.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Welcome to This Week in Rock and Roll, a segment where we look back on events through the history of rock and roll. I'm Cameron Stewart.
And I'm Juliana Costello. In 1957, the Coasters' record Searchin', which reached number 3 in the U.S., became the first of their 10 Billboard Top 40 hits.
In 1965, John Lennon passed his IELTS test at 24 years old, becoming the last Beatle to obtain a driver's license. Fittingly, that same day, the band begins working on a new song called Ticket to Ride.
In 1968, Elvis Presley's gospel album, How Great Thou Art, was rewarded a gold record. It would go on to win a Grammy Award for Best Sacred Performance, and by 2010 was certified triple platinum.
In 1972, Pink Floyd premiered song material that was scheduled to appear on the Dark Side of the Moon album, including the song Eclipse at the Rainbow Theatre in London.
In 1976, the Eagles released their greatest hits 1971 to 1975 album. To this day, it is still one of the best-selling records of all time.
In 1987, Bon Jovi started a 4-week run at the top of the Billboard chart with Livin' on a Prayer. It reached number 4 in the UK.
In 1992, Wayne's World, the motion picture starring Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, opened in movie theaters across the U.S. The soundtrack includes cuts from Queen, Eric Clapton, and Jimi Hendrix.
In 2006, the surviving members of the Bee Gees, Robin and Barry Gibb, returned to the stage for the first time since their brother Maurice died 3 years earlier. The pair returned for a charity concert in Miami to raise money for the Diabetes Research Institute, where they played many of the hits from their 35-year career.
In 2008, Little Richard got a standing ovation from a crowd of 2,400 at the Raymond Auditorium in Nashville without playing a single note. The 75-year-old rock and roll pioneer was seated at the rear of the auditorium during a concert by the Temptations and the Four Tops when he was introduced by the Temptations' Otis Williams.
In 2017, David Cassidy revealed that he was suffering from the early stages of dementia following a shaky performance at the Canyon Club in Agoura Hills, California. Cassidy revealed the situation to People magazine, saying that both his grandfather and mother suffered from the disease.
And that concludes This Week in Rock and Roll. Be sure to tune in next week at 4:30 and follow us on our socials, on Twitter at JayhawkJukebox and on our Instagram at JayhawkJukebox.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.